Hello and welcome into another bonus episode of the Couch GMs podcast. This is our weekly recap of the Couch GMs World Cup. If you're new here, the Couch GMs World Cup is our 30-man, 4-year fantasy football experience to see who is the best of the best. We have 3 10-man leagues that we are going head-to-head against, and then we'll repick teams in the following years and come out with one World Cup Couch GMs champion. And this episode, we recap it. It's a little bit later than usual in the week, so I'm going to skip through news because George, myself, and possibly Tyler will be back Friday morning, and we'll hit all the news then. So let's just jump right in to the Couch GM World Cup recap. As always, this is your reminder to head over to YouTube, and search the Couch GMs and check it out because I will have the standings and the scores on the screen. We're going to recap the Couch GMs World Cup Week 6. And, normally we start with Group A. Let's go backwards today, and we'll start with Group C. We'll hop into the league here, and let's take a look. This group, very ultra competitive. My team, I believe that is Brandon, is 4-2. Bryn, decent exposure, 4-2. Team Snyder, 4-2 after starting 4-0. He's lost the last 2 weeks, so he is 4-2. So 4 teams, 4-2. George sitting at 3-3, so very competitive, except for Cincinnati's own, who's down 0-6. But it is not too late for him to turn it around. But let's get into the matchups from Week 6. Get a little bit of a quick preview who George is playing in Week 7 if you're watching on YouTube. But right now, we're going to talk about George, who put up a monster week at 160.98, almost a 100-point victory over Coleman at 65.5. And as always, we'll scroll down. We'll look at the guys that helped lead him there. And again, George's quarterback is Tua. The Dolphins' offense continues to roll. Raheem Mostert, a big part of that, 32 points. Adam Thielen continues to get targets and receptions and is becoming an unsung hero of this fantasy football season. 16 points for the Chiefs defense on Thursday night. What a way to kick off the week. Does look like Coleman did not swap out his defense, but at some point, it's probably just he knew he was going to take a loss and it wasn't worth dropping out some of the guys. And if you look at his bench, he had 6 other people on by 5. I apologize. 6 is including the defense. So rough week for him, but hopefully the buys are beyond him. Pretty impressive to have that many buys when only 2 teams were in buy, where we have 6 teams coming up in Week 7. Again, we'll recap all that, break that all down on the traditional Couch GMs podcast that comes out on Friday mornings. All right, that was George's big victory. Let's move over to Team Snyder, who we talked about started out 4-0 and has dropped the last 2 after an 86.82 defeat to Jason at 115.06. Some key contributors to the victory of this week. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he had a really good week in his bounce back. Tyreek Hill, again, you just want a part of that Dolphin offense. Still got the victory despite David Montgomery being injured and going now early. Damian Pierce had a rough week. But for the losing side and Team Snyder, just really not a terrible. I mean, Deebo Samuel only putting at 1.1 points hurts, but just a lot of guys being meh. Especially like a guy like Christian McCaffrey. I know he left the game with an oblique injury, so you hate to see that, but still got 12 points because of the touchdown. But you've been expecting McCaffrey to get you at least 20. Alvin Kamara continues his strong push as he is back in the lineup. Here, quick look at bench score. Benches wouldn't have made much of a difference in this matchup. It's a good win for Jason. My team, who we talked about as Brandon, is the top of the standings, sitting number 1 in Group C at 4-2. Squeaked out a victory, 114.70 to 110, even against Jim. Let's see these lineups down here. Ravens defense, 14 points to the 49ers defense, 10 points. You could say this game came down to the defense. Kyron Williams for Brandon's team had 20 points, but he's injured and it's expected to be a long-term injury. So we'll see how he recovers from that one. Does look like George Kittle ultimately was a big disappointment too at 0.6 points as the 49ers had a tough day in Cleveland. Anyone on the bench that we're definitely kicking ourselves? Jason definitely outscored him in bench points. So I'm sure if he had the perfect lineup, he might have been able to squeak out the victory. But Brandon gets the victory this week. On to our fourth matchup in Group C. That is Anthony, who is 0-6, 94.76 points to Mikey B in Bryn Decent Exposure. He is 4-2, second place overall, but the same record. And we'll look at their scores here. This one wasn't as close as our last matchup, but still a pretty close matchup. Miles Sanders putting up a goose egg. Not sure if I can't remember off the top of my head. Forgive me if he was ruled out inactive, if that's a late scratch that might have cost him here. And he didn't have any other running backs available. Cooper Kupp is on his bench. Maybe he should get that guy in the lineup of someone like Robert Woods, or Miles Sanders was in the flex spot. So you play Cooper Kupp instead of Miles Sanders, and you probably walk away with a victory. Not too big of a, looks like Mikey B played all the right guys. So yeah, that one mistake of playing Miles Sanders instead of Cooper Kupp seems to have caused Cincinnati his first win. And the final matchup here in Group C is Doug, who is also 4-2, one of the four teams that are 4-2. He is sitting in the fourth position, squeaks out, or doesn't squeak out. He gets a dominant victory over Dutchy 21. That's Dave, who's sitting at 2-4. And we'll scroll down, take a look. I'm gonna have to guess there's some buys going on here, having to play Kenny Gainwell and Zach Charbonnet as your running backs, or maybe just injuries that haven't been able to overcome, and that's going to be tough winning. You can't fix that running back position moving forward. Let's take a look at his bench. Yep, there's Justin Jefferson on his bench. He should move him to his IR spot and pick someone else up. I mean, he has Justice Hill and Devonta Foreman, so yeah, he definitely needs help with the running back. So he has maybe should have tried to move DJ Moore after that big victory, but now with Justin Fields out, that's a sketchy name. Maybe you have to move off TJ Hawkinson and try to find a wide receiver. Devontae Smith dealing with so a lot of work for David to get his team back on track. But like we say, it is still only 6 weeks. There's still majority of the season left. You can turn it around, and you just got to get into the playoffs. So don't rule out David quite yet. But that wraps up the Group C World Cup recap. We'll jump over to my group and Group B. We'll keep them in the middle since we're working our way backwards. And we got to give a shout out to My Kiddo Pony, who is also known as Bree, who is 6-0 and straight dominating this matchup. Now, it is interesting to point out, not taking away 6-0 is an amazing start. She only has 20 more points than the next highest score, which would be myself. That's probably another reason why I'm pointing it out. And I'm at 4-2, sitting at second place. And we have another one at 4-2, sitting in third place. So still pretty close top, very competitive. Another 0-6 team. That's Aaron Radioactive DK. And I play with him in another league, and he is just having a tough luck of a season. But he's a good fantasy player. He can turn it around. There's still time. He's going to have to probably make some moves and go on a little bit of a streak here. But let's look into those week 6 matchups and see what we have going on here. We'll start with my matchup, which was against Shelby, or the Cup Side Down is her team name. We both finished 4-2, but it's a crucial head-to-head, especially as we move into, if we stay in the same standings, I would get the bye over her just because of that victory. So that's something to monitor the rest of season, depending on how we pan out. And let's see our matchups. So Alvin Kamara was a big factor for me. Getting him back has been helpful. Brees Hall is a solid running back as well. Devontae Adams putting up 3.9 did not help Shelby's case at all. Now, the good news is for Shelby is there really isn't anyone on her bench. You could say Dak Prescott over Josh Allen, but nobody blames her for playing Josh Allen against the New York Giants defense. Him only getting 13 points is one of the bigger surprises of the week. So no harm, no foul there. It would have definitely helped her. It would have gave her about 11 more points, which, depending on what my lineup would have done, might have been able to squeak out the victory. But that's pretty much our matchup, this big matchup in Group B to kick off week 6. Our next matchup is Hayden versus Cliff Neal, also known as Quan Solo versus Gridiron Academy. Neal gets the victory 105.18 to 100.74. And we'll scroll down here. Another very close matchup. We're talking 5 points. Trevor Lawrence under 15, not great. Saquon under. I mean, he's still battling back against Buffalo. I think you take the 12-point performance. Calvin Ridley, though, you have the stack of Lawrence and Calvin Ridley, and they kind of let you down there. And unfortunately, the Cowboys defense came back to earth this week. And I mean, 7 is still a good week for a defense, but not what the Cowboys have putting up here. But same thing. Hayden, he had a really good week. It's a unfortunate, tough loss, but he played his maximum lineup. So sometimes you just take those in fantasy, and he had to take one of those this week. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's a guy that we're going to talk about a lot getting a victory. Neal is going to have to replace David Montgomery for a couple weeks. And looking at, he has the McLaughlin, the running back for Denver. I don't know why I still can't pronounce his name. Roshan Johnson coming back. So he has some guys, has some potential. Jaylen Warren as well, coming off the bye, if he needs to throw someone in there. But we'll see what he does next week replacing that injury. And he also has Christian McCaffrey. So his running back should be a real weak point depending on how long those two guys are out. Hayden is sitting in the 9th spot, 2-4, where Neal is the 4th spot at 3-3. So he's the highest of the 3-3 teams. Speaking of 3-3 teams, we have Reed, who fell to 3-3. Marcus picks up his second victory of the season with a 121.90 victory, 81.44 points for Reed. A 40-point domination here. And is there a Dolphin? That's the thing we're going to look for if you put up a lot of points. Surprisingly, no, in terms of Marcus's case here. He did have Kyron Williams, but we talked about him in Group C. He's going to be out, so how does he replace him? Travis Kelce had a bounce back week with Taylor Swift in the stands. Tough. I mean, he had solid performances all around. Keenan Allen, another good week for him, proving to still be an elite wide receiver in fantasy football and in the NFL. Underrated in both cases, most likely. So solid week. Let's see if he has any running backs on his roster that could fill in for Kyron Williams. He does have Jerome Ford, the guy that is still at this point getting the most of the carries, but Kareem Hunt is slowly taking some snaps away from him. But Dameon Pierce, if he could bounce back, Javonte Williams, if he can come off of injury for Denver. And he did have Anthony Richardson, who hit the IR and most likely is going to miss the rest of the season. So tough break for Marcus's team. But let's take a look at Reed to see what happened for him. DeAndre Hopkins having to play him, only getting 2.5 points. Now with Ryan Tannehill out, DeAndre Hopkins seems like a guy that you should probably try to trade on name value if you can, but he's had a rough start, and that Titans offense is not going to get any better in the near future. Eckler, first game back, only 8 points. You expect he'll bounce back. He'll get better as the season goes on. Same thing with Joe Mixon. He's been pretty strong to start the season, 7 points. So looks more like just a rough week for Reed. I mean, Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, that is an elite running back group if they're all healthy and going. So that's a guy to keep a name on, either for trades potential down the line. We've only had one trade so far between all 3 leagues in the Couch GMs World Cup. And we'll see if one of these running back needy teams makes a move and tries to go after one of Reed's top 3 guys. Smart to not play Deebo Samuel, only got 1.1 points. I know that's hard to not play him, but he picked Nico Collins over Deebo Samuel. It was the right call. Fortunately, it still did not work out for him in the end. So our 4th matchup, Bree, as she mentioned, continues to win as she is undefeated with a 108.32 versus Jeff at 87.32. We'll scroll down here. And Tyreek Hill, a Dolphin, big reason why. Lamar Jackson, Ken Walker continues to have his strong season. Bijan Robinson is looking good. George Kittle, Jerry Jeudy, though, not great. Bree might need some help there if she wants to keep it rolling, but she does have guys like Jameson Williams who had that big touchdown and starting to come on strong. She does have Elijah Mitchell, if he is the guy in the absence of Christian McCaffrey. Wow, I can't believe I forgot his name. And she does have Jeff Wilson, who is probably coming off IR this week, and A-Chain when he gets back too. So Bree is definitely one of the contenders early and looks like a strong team down the stretch. And we'll talk about Sheeler's team. His name's also Jeff, but we call him Sheeler. Justin Fields, him getting hurt definitely did not help his chances this week. That also diminished DJ Moore, which he had the stack there. Devontae Smith is a little bit banged up. So, yeah, Jeff has some guys that are on the injury report. Khalil Herbert hit the IR. He can move him to add another guy. Has 3 quarterbacks, and he played Fields over Tua. Maybe it's time to keep Tua in your lineup rest of season, especially now that Fields is hurt. Our last matchup in Group B is Najee and the Jets versus Aaron. Radioactive DK, who I mentioned at the top of the Group B segment, is 0-6. And if you're on YouTube, you see that correctly. He lost by 0.62 points, a 118.20 to 117.62. And that was not good math. He lost by 0.59 points. That's how it works that way. But we'll see. Let's see if there's anything he can do. We're going to go right to the bench here. And I see a 17-point performance from Drake London. I see a 14-point, or that's for Aaron. And then for Josh, I see a 14-point performance for Zay Flowers. Josh, if he plays him over Josh Reynolds, he gets the victory. If, Drake London outscores Gabe Davis and DK Metcalf for Aaron's side. So, looks like Josh, if he played the best lineup, would have got the victory no matter what. But Aaron, just one different move or one different decision. Again, I understand playing Gabe Davis against the New York Giants. Like that was tough. That was a tough matchup for any Bills owners going into that primetime matchup and needing the Bills to perform, and they didn't. It was quite shocking, to say the least. But hopefully this shows that, again, Aaron at 117 is the third highest scorer on the week, sitting at 0-6. So let's just jump back real quick. And I talked about the difference between Bree and myself. Let's see if Aaron's any. No, he still is the lowest guy in terms of points for it. Maybe he's starting to find something, get a little bit better. And then Marcus is a name to watch, who is sitting in the 8th seed at 2-4, but the third highest scorer and could make a run down the stretch or the rest of season. It's too early to call down the stretch. Let's jump over to Group A, and that is Tyler's league. And we're looking. So Bree is the only person that is 6-0 at this point. Similar to Group C, there's 4 teams tied at 4-2. Memphis Pharaohs, Ashley Madison, I Kirk My Cousins, and Chaos Reigns. Note everyone in this league, though, does at least have a victory. So let's jump into the Week 6 matchups. We'll start with Tyler here, who plays Chaos Reigns this week, but we have to move back to Week 6. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And Colin got a much-needed victory over Tyler, 101.08 to 84.60. And I believe this league, Tyler has, no, this is not one of the leagues. He has Devon A-Chain. I'm in too many leagues with that guy. Hence why he's one of the co-hosts and one of the people that helped found the Couch GMs World Cup. He does not have A-Chain in this league, but he did have Jared Goff, who put up 22 points, and he started Joe Burrow. So there was a miss right there. He has Christian McCaffrey, who is now banged up. Calvin Ridley, his performance. Cole Kmet, only 1 reception without Justin Fields. Deebo Samuel. So a really tough break from a lot of key guys here for Tyler this week. Where Colin, he got a much-needed victory. A lot of thanks to Adam Thielen. Again, the dude is just putting up points there with Bryce Young being that reliable veteran wide receiver that he can count on, and he's getting the targets, and he found himself in the end zone. 23-point performance, half-point people are scoring. Got to love that for Adam Thielen, and not something I expected to say this season. Thought he was pretty much done for in terms of fantasy relevance when he went to Carolina this year, and he has definitely proved me wrong. The second matchup here is Tyler, the other Tyler, also known as Kempy. He played Andrew of Chaos Reigns and took L, 79.52 to 116.42. Same thing, we'll check out these box scores right here. Logan Thomas, even though you got the victory, 0.7 points last week, that's a tough one. 1 reception for 2 yards. Hopefully he can bounce back later in the week. Derrick Henry had a really nice day, 18.3. Zach Moss continues to ball out, 14.9. Taylor is starting to see more work, though. So maybe it's time to move Zach Moss. Maybe you keep him in case Taylor gets hurt again. It's really hard to tell. Kempe took the risk on DeMarcado, the Arizona running back with James Conner down. Didn't pay off with a 2.2 performance. He also played Deontay Foreman with no Khalil Herbert, 7.2. DJ Moore. Man, this dude really loving the Bears. Justin Fields, Deontay Foreman, DJ Moore. At least, man, he just loves the NFC North. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. That's the fun thing about doing this weekly recap is I get to take a deeper look at everybody's teams and seeing what kind of things. There's another Lion, Packer, Justin Jefferson, and Khalil Herbert. Man, his IR list, though, is a tough stretch. So Kempe is sitting at 3-3. If he can stay afloat and squeak into the playoffs and get Justin Jefferson, James Conner, Khalil Herbert in, that's a guy that the record might not say how good his team is, but if he can squeak into the playoffs, he's a team to on the look for. We still have 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, and 14. So plenty of weeks left. The third matchup in Group A is between Ryan and Sean. Sean gets a close victory, 101.08 to 93.40. Let's see. So that's about a 7-point roughly difference. It's not quite. It's since decimals. So let's see if there's anybody that could have made up the difference. I see Damian Pierce for Urban Warfare had a 3-point game. Does he have a running back down here that scored more? No, he had a lot of guys on bye as well. So Warren, Pickens, Dobbs, AJ Dillon. So a lot of Packers and Steelers on his bench, wasn't able to swap that out there. So it doesn't look like anything on his bench could have helped him squeak out the victory. So good victory for Sean here, who will have another person that has to replace David Montgomery, but does have Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins, and those seem to be the premium fantasy players, and we'll get Devin Achane back at some point. Or Achane, I apologize. That is the correct pronunciation, Achane. Next up, we have Cam versus Greg at 139.96 to 94.74. Big win here. There it is, Raheem Mostert. If you put up a lot of points this week, you probably had Raheem Mostert. Brees Hall had a really good week against the Philadelphia Eagles. Still put up almost 140 points with Devontae Adams putting up 3.9 there. So not much Ashley Madison could have done. So good week for him. Ooh, wait a second. 51.7 bench points. Yep. The Dak Prescott over Kirk Cousins right there. I mean, that's a close matchup. Chargers, and I get it why it was the Bears, why you would think that would be a good one. But Dak, if you play that, that's an extra 16 points. Puts you at 110. Played a different running back. I mean, he still didn't have enough points to still get there. I mean, been close if you played Brian Robinson over George Kittle, but that's really pulling teeth and stuff like that. So tough matchup, tough loss, a lot of bench points. Still quite wouldn't have done it for Greg and Ashley Madison as he goes to 4-2, and Cam is 4-2. So guys at the tied for the top spot in Group A. Last up is Andrew with the Memphis Pharaohs at 110.54 versus 101.54 to Nick. Andrew moves into the number one overall spot at 4-2. Nick falls to 3-3 in seventh place. So 4-2 is first, 3-3 is seventh. That just goes to show you how tight this Group A is, and it's going to come down to the wire. Let's look at these players here real quick to recap. Anybody could have made a big enough difference for Nick. I always forget his name, and I don't know why. I could have made a big enough difference. He didn't play Chuba Hubbard, plays him over Joe Mixon, which I understand why you wouldn't as well as Joe Mixon. You got Eckler back. Yeah. I mean, you can't really blame him for the moves that he made. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out for him. And there was some points to be had there, but there was also points on Andrew's bench here. So just to recap, Andrew's the victory 110.54 to 101.54. And through 6 weeks, Andrew is the leader in Group A. I'm just going to hop over here real quick so you can take a peek at the standings. I showed it in Group C already. I forgot to show it in Group B, so I'll hop back over there for them. And That's the Group A standings. If you're over on YouTube, I'll read them to you real quick. Memphis Pharaohs, Ashley Madison, Ikirk, my cousins, Chaos Rain. That's a chunky. Kempy's team, Nick's team of Black Sheep, Smile for Kamara, Collins team. The people I'm saying their names for, I know their names by their picture, or they have too many letters that it's hard to read on my small screen. So I apologize if I don't say your team name. And then Urban Warfare at 1 and 5. I'll show you Group B one last time since I forgot. Wish I would have did this earlier, but you probably saw it enough. I was talking about the point spread. But Bree, myself, Shelby, Neil, Sheeler, Josh, Reed, Marcus, Hayden, and Aaron. That is the lineup right there. And as you can tell, that is my league because I have everyone's names memorized here as well. But before we get out of here, let's jump in to the quickest Thursday night preview. All righty. And our Thursday night matchup this week is the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New Orleans Saints. And the big question mark heading into Thursday is, will Trevor Lawrence play? He's dealing with a little bit of a knee sprain. Sounds like he would most likely play for sure if this game was on Sunday, but because it's on Thursday, it's more of a question mark. It is still trending. He's very optimistic he'll play. And if he does play, I think that's good for his surrounding weapons. If you're, grabbing Evan Ingram out of the tight end bucket, or if you're hoping Calvin Ridley can bounce back, need a flex spot in the first week of Armageddon with 6 teams on bye with Christian Kirk, those are guys that you like a lot better if Trevor Lawrence is out there. And if he's not, it makes it really interesting if you would play them. On the Saints side, it's the same thing. Derek Carr, if you have to in a spot start situation because of buys, I don't hit it this week. Jacksonville has been so inconsistent in the ups and downs. Chris Olave is still in your lineup. Alvin Kamara is in your lineup since he is back as well. But that's pretty much it for the Jag side. And if the Saints side, and if the Saints, or excuse me, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play, I think you're probably still going to roll out Calvin Ridley just because he is the number one option. Or maybe you like Evan Ingram a little bit more with the backup quarterback, just because the backup quarterback's younger guys, which is CJ Beathard, formerly of the San Francisco 49ers. So not the youngest guy, but has some NFL experience, likes to throw to the tight end. Travis Etienne can still be in your lineup whether either quarterback plays there. So that is your quickest Thursday night football preview. George and I, and hopefully Snyder will be back later this week. I know Snyder's got a lot going on, so he might not quite make it. Again, I apologize. This episode was a little bit later in the week 6 because a lot of people are already on to week 7. But as always, you can follow us on the Couch GMs Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, everywhere at the Couch GMs. And thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you all later this week.